everyone, and welcome to the MrWarrenHayes show special edition that I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks because guess what? It is G1 season. The G1 for New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's always an exciting time. It's always a good time for people who are, really into tournament wrestling and who really enjoy, the sport aspect of professional wrestling. As opposed to the entertainment part of it. This is it. This is where New Japan consistently delivers some of its best matches of the year, some of the most exciting times, and then you get a really good feel for what's going to happen leading into the last few months of the year as we head into Wrestle Kingdom, which is always, I should say. Well, at least for the past, 16 years now? We're up to 16 Wrestle Kingdoms. As it stands right now, this is like, this is, at least for the past 15 or 16 years, I don't know, I think we're at 16. It's the most exciting time to get into, it's the most exciting time to get into it. And it's also, a good way to see what's going to happen. And I'm not going to lie to you all. Like I love New Japan because it hits in all the right places, like in every place. But I was really sitting around contemplating and thinking, should I do a New Japan G1 Climax 31 thing at all this year? I was really wondering. I was asking myself, should I even invest any time into it? Because I found the product this year to be particularly rough. Let's put it that way. To no fault of the talent was involved in New Japan. No, COVID in and about itself has made, with the restrictions and everything, has made New Japan so incredibly difficult to watch with the very silent crowds. And then I'm still baffled, with these dome shows that can seat 20,000 people and you're sitting down 2,000 people. Just everything sounds so cavernous and empty. And then with the restrictions and on top of the restrictions, I should say, then you get talent getting sick, disappearing. And there's a lot of stuff I was looking forward to in New Japan this year that just turned out to be snake bitten. They really had trouble getting any type of consistency, and to a certain degree, there's a lot of happenstance and circumstance right now, but as it goes, as it keeps on going, you're like, well, they're also making some very strange decisions, which is not necessarily helping the experience, like the dome shows, for instance. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a fair shake because it is the G1, right? This is really the time of year where this is really the moment of the year where everyone who's been going around and building their top shows of the top matches of the year, their match of the year lists. That's what I'm trying to say here. All of them have been, all of us, I'm going to include myself in there, got their Excel sheets open and they're writing them down. Oh, this match. Everyone always hesitates to pronounce themselves on something fantastic right up until the G1 is done. This is where we are right now. So when I decided to do it before night one started. I was like, look, I'm going to do it. I'm absolutely going to do it. I committed to it in my mind. And then I watched night one, block A, night two of block B. And you know what? I'm like, I'm really glad I decided to do it. I'm really glad I decided to do it. Because straight out the gate, both nights have been extremely entertaining. Good stuff, good shows, easy watches. And that's always that's a plus right there. Is you've got about it's about a 3-hour chunk of time that you can easily boil down into a breezy 2 hour, maybe an hour and 3/4, 2 hour watch, something like that. If you take away, if you just fast forward to the shows, to the matches, the G1 matches, it's been good. Like the kickoff to the G1 this year has been very, very good, and a good omen. Because if it was anything else, I should say, I wouldn't be here so enthusiastic. I'd be like, clap crowds, but no, it's actually been very. It's an extremely good kickoff to the shows. So hopefully they can maintain that momentum. But as it stands right now, look, if you want to get into it, I am definitely not going to stop you. That is for absolutely sure. But you know what else I'm not going to stop you from doing? Liking this video if you're watching it right now, right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, because that always helps. That's always a good time and always super appreciated. Thank you very much if you're about to do it. And if it's your first time here, well, consider a subscription. Hang around, see if I can own your subscription. If I can deserve it. If I deserve it. Do I deserve your subscription? Because your time is precious, so is mine. Notifications everywhere. I like to feel like I earn my relationship, I earn my relationships, but my subscriptions as well. If you want to do it right now, go right ahead. But I'll be doing this recap. I'll be doing it every 2 shows. Instead of doing like one for block A, one for block B, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go once both blocks have one canned, have a show canned. Then I'll do it. So I'm doing nights 1 and 2. Then I'll do nights 3 and 4, 5 and 6, so on and so forth. I'm excited. I love the G1 season. It's just New Japan has been rough. It's just been a tough watch. But I really, really love the G1. And it's a weird one if anyone wants to get into New Japan this year, just because the setup and the crowds are so unlike what they used to be. It's so unusual. But I hope we can all get together and enjoy it, or at least get some thoughts, some recaps of the show. Let's go right ahead. Let's start talking about it. Let's start with the G1 Climax night 1, G1 Climax 31. I was going to say night 31. I'm all over the place right now. Maybe I'm more excited to talk about the G1 than I realized. The G1 Block A kicked things off on night 1, which was October 18. Just yesterday. I was going to say a couple of days ago. It's just yesterday. Arguably the stronger group of the two. This is the one that has most people's attention captivated. This is the one that we're most excited to take a look at and see how things are going. And with reason. I mean, if you look at the at the brackets, which are available, which you can see right here on screen if you're watching this right now on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, you'll see. Look, we've got the likes of Kota Ibushi in this, Tatsuya Naito. We've got Shingo Tagaki as well, Zack Saber Jr., Tommy Ishii. Like it's a big. This one has really the big names. Kenta has a lot of big, capable names in here, whereas Block B comes off as a little weaker. Sure, you've got the Tanahashis and Okadas in here. You've got Jeff Cobb, who is going to be something special. Be sure of that. But yeah, this is definitely going to be something. This is definitely going to be something unique that we are going to be seeing here today. We got a little confusion issue here, but I wanted to say a big thank you to Nick Wolf for the super chat. Thank you very much. Nick says, bring me back, Warren. Thank you for the recap. Thank you, sir. I'm assuming you haven't been watching, which is understandable. Like I said, I can't blame anyone for not being into watching the G1 this year, because it's a little on the rough side. But thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Hopefully I can get you back in. Let's get to it. First night of the climax. I'm not going to talk about the opening matches just for brevity's sake, because I know how I can get. But I will say this. Show has been in the openers. He's been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Great reinvention of our boy Show, formerly of Roppongi 3K. Absolute brilliant stuff so far. So, let's get to it. We got Kota Ibushi opening this up against Yujiro Takahashi, the Tokyo Pimp. And I'm like, as this one starts, I'm like, woof. In front of the smaller crowds, the silent crowds, Yujiro and Ibushi, I'm like, man, this is gonna stink. And you know, from the get-go, you get like Marty Asani, who is, unquestionably the worst referee in professional wrestling. I really do believe that. Like, the guy, I know a lot of people give Red Shoes some grief, but Marty Asani, man, he's on another level. Marty Asani, he gets tricked into checking out Peter, who is with Yujiro, as he and Ibushi are on the outside fighting, and he chokes out Ibu with his pimp stick. Can you imagine you're still running a pimp gimmick in 2021? That's commitment, if anything. Ibushi goes for the hits, he goes for the striking combo, the Rana. He goes for the golden triangle. It gets interrupted though. He goes for a Kamigoye. It's avoided. Ibushi actually almost runs into the ref, which allows for a low blow. Yujiro does a pimp juice. Ibushi kicks out. And then a little later on, Yujiro pulls out the big juice as opposed to the pimp juice, which is a front face slam maneuver. And he beats Kota Ibushi on the first night. And this is as clean a win as you will get as far as Yujiro goes these days. These years. I mean, it's just that right off the gate, a surprise upset. Yujiro getting one over Kota Ibushi, 3-time G1 finalist, back-to-back winner, and here he is. Now, I had talked about, I'll start by talking about Ibushi. I talked about this on the mainstream, previewing the upcoming G1. I was like, Ibushi at Wrestle Grand Slam lost to Hiroshi Tanahashi. It was Ibushi's match back since this mysterious disease that he got, or whatever reason that took him out. It was his comeback. Returns with Tanahashi. They have a good match. Not surprising there. I felt like part of the story of the match that they were telling there was that, Ibushi maybe wasn't 100%. And I feel like this was the story that they were going to lean on going into the G1 in general, saying that Ibushi is not quite Kota Ibushi. Like he won the world championship, right? Or at least the double belts. immediately lost the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship after being inaugurated, after being presented as its first champion. He loses it on his first defense. He's out sick, some pneumonia or whatever it was. It was something serious, that's for sure. And then comes back, fights Hiroshi Tanahashi, a guy that he's competed against, was friends with, and who Tanahashi was always there to sort of elevate him and saying, now you have to be a god. You remember that whole bit when they were the Golden Aces as a tag team? It's like, I'm going to elevate you so that you become a god. We're not seeing God Kota Ibushi here. I think the story they're telling here is that Ibushi is coming into this G1 unprepared. He's not ready. It's not this top guy that we're used to. Flip over to Yujiro. So you flip over to this match here and you're like, yeah, for sure. If he's losing to Yujiro out the gate, then hell yeah, there's a problem here. Something's not quite right. And as far as Yujiro goes, well, again, this is something that I talked about on the main podcast. There's been multiple reports to the effect that Yujiro, being a part of the House of Torture Bullet Club subfaction, right? The one that was just started recently by Evil, has Dick Togo and Sho as well in there as members. The reports coming out is that New Japan really wants to push the House of Torture and make them to turn them into a viable main event threat. And there were plans that were scrapped. Dick Togo was pushing, who is on, the booking committee for New Japan as well. Don't keep that in mind. He had been pushing for Evil to win the World Championship off of Shingo at Wrestle Grand Slam, just to win it, just so that Shingo could win it back a few months later or a couple of weeks later, whatever, like a short reign, just to establish the House of Torture as something. Thankfully, that was vetoed. That would have been a shit decision. But as it stands right here and now, in regards to what we're doing in the G1 here, they're going to want to push their presence, and I'll probably talk about it a little later when we talk about the Evil match. But to a certain degree, again, this is the kind of thing that when you take a step back and you think about it and you look at how New Japan books, you look at their patterns. This was pretty good. Not pretty good. This made sense, is what I'm trying to say. This made sense in regards to, how they're going to present Ibushi and the House of Torture stuff. So is this going to be Yujiro's only win in the G1? Probably not. Because, I definitely can see him and Tanga Loa going either way. And, if you were to ask me, I don't see him, when you look at the, at who's in the block with him, I don't see him defeating Naito or Kenta or Shingo, right? Or even Junior, or even Zack Saber Jr., I'm not quite sure. But he just defeated Kota Ibushi, so this sort of throws all the pick'ems in the air, right? It's like no one had picked Yujiro over Ibushi. If you did, it was one of these pick'ems where you're just going to go against conventional wisdom from A to Z, right? That's essentially it. This was a fine match. It was all right. By the way, nothing to write home about, but absolutely nothing offensive. It was a good opener. Then we had the Great Okan going over Tanga Loa here. I like this match. I felt that this was a match that over-delivered, that exceeded my expectations. And I was very pleased about that. Because you get what you have here is you have two big, strong guys here that just decide to go at it. There was a good spear by Tanga Loa that he hit on a running Great Khan that, that can't feel good for anyone. Great Khan eats a great snap suplex on the floor. Tanga Loa just put a lot of torque in it, was really good. Loa works the arms, hits a spine buster. Great Khan hits a gourd buster. There's a sliding dropkick to Tanga Loa while he's in a Tree of Woe, which was also pretty cool. Then we get we get a big sequence where there's everyone's just slamming each other all around the ring, and commentary puts over the fact that that Tanga Loa is trying to work the hands, the claw, right? Claws are weird finishers in wrestling. They really are. I understand. Don't get me wrong. I understand the logic behind them. Like if someone inserts their fingers, into your mouth and start pressing down or up, depending. Yeah, there's a lot of sensitive nerves there, and it hurts like hell. And they're tugging down at your lower jaw at the same time. No, I mean nothing. Of course, it's uncomfortable, but as a spectator sport, as something that you're like, especially in an era where we're used to finishers being spectacular or cranking up the nasty to look really, really painful. Claws are weird. I really again, I get it, but I feel like Great Khan could benefit from a better finisher or more spectacular finisher. But then again, I understand. That's the point, is that there's part of his act which is being a throwback wrestler, being a throwback to the big tough guys of New Japan. That there's it's not a surprise. It's not surprise. It's not random that he's using Mongolian chops as a strict part of his offense. Jado gets knocked out awkwardly. He was there, of course, at ringside with Tanga Loa. Tanga Loa does has a jumping enziguri and a power bomb, but it's a Dominator, I think, that puts Tanga Loa away. So you see, even there, pulls out the Dominator. I think that's interesting. It looks good on him. Great Khan gets his first win of the G1, and it will not be his last. And I'm excited to see what Tanga Loa is going to do in this tournament. He is my Gorilla of Destiny of choice between he and Tama. And this is something that I would never say to Tama Tonga's face, because I am a coward. But I don't think his in-ring is that great. However, I find that Loa, over the course of the pandemic, was used a little more in singles matches, and I was surprised at how good he was in the singles role. Pulled up a couple of good matches. I'm excited to see how this goes moving forward for him. I think this, he could potentially have a breakout moment in this tournament, so I'm excited for that. But as it stands, he has 0 points. But I mean, it's just the first show, right? And Toru Yano defeated Yano. What the hell am I talking about? Toru Yano defeated Kenta. Yano back in his Sublime Master Thief gear. He dyed his hair back. There's no more hardcore, violent Toru Yano. No, he's back to his goofy self, hawking all of his products. I loved how his entrance was all about, is all about everything that he's hawking, that he's a spokesperson of, his cookbook, whatever. And then Kenta comes out with his own custom introduction, which he gives to the ring announcer, and he reads it off. And a lot of it was phony, especially uplifting his high school or college sports accomplishments. That was pretty funny. I liked here how Kenta really leaned into the nonsense, right? You got to appreciate that. I thought that was a lot of fun. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm pretty sure. You see Kenta arrive, you look at him, and I'm like, this dude, I don't think he's looked this good since bumping into New Japan. What is it now? 2 years at this point? I honestly don't think he's been in that good a shape. Like, he is in G1 shape. There's a couple of guys here where I sort of like, oh, they put in a little extra work here. They're okay. They're ready. Kenta looks great. Like, honestly, I don't remember how he's looked. He hasn't looked that good in a whole while. He didn't look this good in his NXT run. Absolutely. And 205 Live. And I mean, it was the Yano match. So the Yano match is what it is. It's a palate cleanser. It's a little something different. It gives a night off to whoever they're wrestling, Referee, pats down Yano to Kenta's insistence and he finds tape. But then Yano's like, yeah, pat that bastard down while you're at it. And referee pats him down and he finds tape on Kenta. Kenta goes for the stall to get under Yano's skin here. And Yano is so fed up because because all Kenta's doing is stalling. He's like, he threatens to leave the match. He starts walking up the ramp. He's like, I'm done. But then Kenta and they actually could. There is a match. Don't worry. They fight up the ramp. There's a roll of tape that's hidden up there and threatening to end the match like their G1 match last year. But this time it's Kenta who taped Yano to the set rigging. And I mean, you get the exposed turnbuckles. Ref gets knocked down. There's tape. More and more tape. Look. The match comes to an end. Look, I'll just wrap it up. The match comes to an end when while the ref is distracted, Yano is able to get a pair of low blows in. And that allows him to do an inside cradle to get the win on Kenta. Look. I like Yano matches because I like Toru Yano. I still think he's my spirit animal, and I enjoy the type of comedy wrestling that he brings. I enjoyed this because Kenta isn't too serious to not get involved in it. I liked it. But this is the kind of thing where you're like, if you're not into comedy matches, if you're not into Yano matches, you're not gonna like this. You're not. You just might as well skip it. But for what it was, I thought it was fine. Then we get into the nitty-gritty of all of this great show. Zack Saber Jr. defeating Tatsuya Naito for his own 2 points here. Naito and Junior Saber, it reminds me of the band Junior Senior. Anyone remember that? Everybody, feel the beat and move your body. Oh yeah, whatever. Naito, they have wonderful chemistry, is what I'm trying to say to both of them. And I like it because this is the kind of match that Naito has to pull out his ground game. He tries to one up our boy Zack here on the grappling front, but he just can't. I mean, come on, let's get real here. Saber has this great sequence. I think it's pretty early on in the match where he interrupts the combinación cabron with a cravat. Naito sort of drags him down, but drags him to get out of it. But Saber holds on, and he hits a great suplex, immediately followed by a basement dropkick, and it fired him up. Not something you really see all that often out of Saber, this type of combination, but it was great. And it was great because it's one of these Zack Saber Jr. matches where he gets really intense and he cranks it up. It's his tournament game that's on. Zack Saber Jr. he's a tournament he's a tournament wrestler is what I'm trying to say. But he really is. Is it? No. Oh, that's right. It's over here. Trying to pull up a note here, and it's not delivering for me. There we go. Look, I mean, he's no slouch in the G1 because he's averaged 10 points in his or at least his 4 previous G1s. This is his 5th. And right now in the block, his 10-point average is the 3rd highest in the block between Tatsuya Naito, who's at 12, and Kota Ibushi, who's at 11.6. And of course, he's a New Japan Cup winner. Like, look, Tournament Saber is here for us, and we're here to enjoy it. This was a lot of fun. There's he hits at some point a dragon suplex on Naito that looked like Naito landed on the crown of his head. At some point he avoids a Destino and wraps a body scissors around him while bending the legs. Then he starts cranking Naito's knee. But then Naito plants a big DDT to avoid any more damage out of this. And there's also another great sequence where Junior hits a sunset powerbomb. Naito kicks out, but Saber holds on to the legs, then wraps him over into a grapevine, which was fantastic. Naito tries a desperation Destino, hits it, but he can't cover because he's just been mangled by Saber so hard. We even get Naito striking at Saber until Saber hits another dragon suplex and a short DDT, but then Naito follows it up with a Valencia, and it all comes to an end when Zack Sabre Jr. twists him into, he does like a, look at me trying to explain what Zack Sabre Jr. does here. He twists him into his legs into an Indian deathlock while pulling on the arms, all the while applying pressure to his head. I think there's the consensus online that this is the move that Saber refers to as, yes, I am a long way from home. That's the name of the move. Yes, I am a long way from home. Naito tapped after desperately trying to get out of it. Good match. I enjoyed it. Very solid, very intense. Great pace to this match. And then our main event. Our boy, Shingo Takagi, defeated Tomohiro Ishii in the quintessential New Japan Strongman match. I love these. This is right up my alley. This is absolutely the type of match that I adore. It's a strong match from the start. Goes to the floor really quickly. There's a power slam by Ishii right there on the floor. And then at some point they're back in the ring, and then there's this great visual of a prone Ishii. He's like on the floor and he's taking like these head kicks, these taunting head kicks by Shingo. And then suddenly like Ishii just jumps up and just grabs Shingo by the neck, and you're like, it's such a good visual. Shingo was just murdering Ishii with the loudest lariats of all time. There was a new made in Japan attempt that was made, and Ishii used a crucifix bomb to get out of it, and that's not something that we're used to seeing in our boy Tom's arsenal. There was a weird ref bump at some point, and I don't know. It didn't interrupt the flow of the match. Nothing happened. No one tried to get one over another guy. There was nothing. Shingo sort of stumbled onto Red Shoes. Now, I don't know if Red Shoes decided if this was an accident. And, like I said, Shingo tumbles over onto Red Shoes, and then Red Shoes, sort of like, and sort of takes the bump because he's a professional. because he recuperated, like he sold the move, but he got back on his feet fairly early to not miss anything else in the match. So, if that was the case, I appreciated it. They put it in to show that despite the fact that there was a ref bump and that the guys had an opening to do shenanigans, that neither of them did it, and they just, it basically didn't change anything. That's another good, that's a good little detail to add. Otherwise, I'm like, it's weird. Because we're so used to seeing ref bumps play a detrimental part in the outcome of a match, where it happens here and we're like, oh, nothing happened? How droll, kind of thing. But no, it was really good. We got Shingo hits a pop-up Death Valley driver on Ishii. A pop-up Death Valley driver. He goes like this, grabs the guy, boop, pops him into the air, then gets him on his shoulders, and then, I mean, come on! Ishii had all sorts of counters for the Last of the Dragon throughout the match, but Shingo puts him away after a pumping bomber, more brutality than the Last of the Dragon. I mean, this was fantastic. Just two guys beating the hell out of each other on a high level. Shingo Tagaki, one of the best wrestlers in the world. Tommy Ishii, we've been saying this for years. He is consistently the G1 MVP. And he's again proving his worth here again today at block 1 of the G1. I'm excited for this. I'm excited to see what happens next for both of these guys. I'm really, really excited. This was a really good show. This was a really good show, everyone. You should definitely take the time to. And you know what? Here's the thing: is like the only thing that is skippable is Kenta and Yano. But I would argue that you skip it if you're really not into that kind of stuff. Like, if you're really, really not into that kind of stuff. Because if you are, this was great. It was a lot of fun. And I'll tell you, Shingo versus Ishii, I would even go as far as to say, sort of go out of your way to see it. This was a tremendous match. It was a tremendous match. And if you felt like New Japan hasn't been quite up to snuff, hasn't been like at the tippy top that you usually expect it to be at, I think this is one that will reconcile your love or give you hope. Because this was, like I said, quintessential New Japan strongman just beating the tar out of each other match. Loved it. Let's go on to night 2. Started off with a match that I was dreading. I'm not going to lie. Evil Yoshi versus Yoshi-Hashi. And like I was talking about earlier, right? I was fully expecting this one to be, a match where Dick Togo and the booking committee were going to lean really, really hard into trying to get Evil and the House of Torture over as bad guys. So I was like, this is just going to be a ridiculous series of interference and shenanigans. Turns out I was kind of right, but not as bad as I expected. And Yoshi-Hashi, look, you guys know my thoughts on Yoshi-Hashi. I think he's a very competent professional wrestler. I think he has his main trouble is that he doesn't connect with the audience. The boy has about as much charisma as this mug, right? I would even argue that the mug, because of the little H monogram here, has more charisma than Yoshi-Hashi. But the thing is that when we saw it at the G1 last year, where Yoshi-Hashi had a fantastic performance, even though he was not a lot annihilated. He wasn't annihilated. Well, he didn't score any points, right? Didn't he finish with 0 last year? Or he finished with 4. He got 2 wins last year. Good for him. Didn't start off quite the same way this year as he lost to Evil. But okay, so he worked really, really hard. They both did. Even Evil put some back into it and was like, oh, okay. Was he talking to his work rate wife? She was saying, you got to up your work rate, husband. He looked at her and he's like, fine. I don't know. Now, this was a solid professional wrestling match, and both guys worked really, really hard. Kudos to Yoshihashi for working as hard as he did on this one too. Now, early up, we get shenanigans from Dick Togo, like really early in the match where he tries to trip up Yoshihashi, and I'm like, here we go. And we do get a lot of these things. You know, you get eye rakes by Evil, you know, your typical heel stuff, right? And then the whole gimmick with the timekeeper and Evil tossing people into the timekeeper's table on the guardrail. Hard enough so that the guardrail will topple over the timekeeper's table onto the timekeeper. They're keeping that gimmick going. Even does he beats up Yoshihashi there on the floor, even gets a sharpshooter on there. What does he call it? The Darkness Scorpion or the Shadow Scorpion? I kind of laughed when I heard the name. I was like, nah. You know, it's bad enough right now that there is a division in the world of wrestling as to whether to call the move a sharpshooter or a scorpion deathlock. Our boy Evil can decide to call it the Dark Scorpion or the Shadow Scorpion. I don't remember, but it was something like that. It has to do with, you know, darkness and evil. I was like, no, we're not throwing a third one into this already tiresome discussion. He beats so basically, you know, he was trying to get the count out win, but Yoshihashi beat the count. Yoshihashi even kicks out of Darkness Falls, counters from out of Everything Is Evil into the butterfly lock. The most terrifying move in all of professional wrestling. I've been told by wrestlers that when applied properly, and I'm not going to say who I spoke with about this, but we did have a bit of a jest. And this isn't recent, right? It's, you know, so if applied properly, the butterfly lock is a proper stretch for a wrestler. It's one where you go, oh, okay, this hurts. But then when I count it and I said, well, what about Yoshihashi's butterfly lock? And they're like, no, he doesn't do it right. Because he doesn't. The trick. I'm not good. I feel like I talk about the butterfly lock in depth every time. I'm not going to do it this time. Yoshihashi has a big comeback sequence where he fights off Togo. There's some ref interference. He's really fired up. Dick Togo gets in the ring again, distracts Evil as he gets rolled up for the visual pin for the audience. It's like, oh, Yoshihashi just defeated Evil, but then that leads to a low blow. Everything hits Evil, and it's done. Evil wins. It's all about establishing House of Torture, right? This is what it was for. Yoshihashi out the gate here. Your job was to make sure that to show that you can beat Evil, but that Evil has Dick Togo in his corner, and it's just going to be ridiculous the whole way through. And honestly, the interference, I know there's been times where Dick Togo interference has been worse, but there was still a lot of it in here. And then, you know, you think back and you go back like at Yujiro, who cheated, right? Didn't get any outside interference, but he did cheat a couple of times to get a relatively, I'd say, an 85% clean win on Kota Ibushi. And then, which is a statement, and then you get Kenta. Kenta cheats as well, but never has any Bullet Club outside interference as well to sort of prop him up. I don't know, man. But a good opener. Solid. It was a super solid match. Jeff Cobb defeated Chase Owens to get on the board early on in this tournament as well. I really liked this match. I thought this was a blast. And it was the kind of blast that helps set the tone for a main character of this G1, which is going to be Jeff Cobb. Owens, right out the gate, he's like, I'm going to take you down. So as soon as the bell rings, Owens just charges Cobb, but Cobb is an immovable force. Jeff Cobb, he's a pillar. He's a living statue. You don't just toss that guy around when you want. He's probably made of granite. Owen tries to pick him apart, but it's not working. Cobb is too strong. So Chase Owens switches his game around. He's like, okay, I'm going to rely on my speed. Once he gets back in control, because Jesus, Cobb hits that. He started doing these crazy belly to belly overhead suplexes on the floor where he just like lifts him and then he releases and the dude just flies. Wham, and lands on the floor, and it is a nasty ass spot. I love it though. He has Owens over his shoulder, and he's running from corner to corner, just manhandling him. Owens then, that's it. At that point, quickly changes his game to use his speed. It's an effective strategy. It keeps him in firm control of Cobb for a while. Hits a standing neck breaker too. He goes for the jewel heist that's countered into a belly-to-belly suplex, which was phenomenal. We even get an Oklahoma Stampede by Cobb. He does a standing moonsault as well. Owens is all about the V triggers now. He's just uncorking them V triggers like he's a world champion. Owens, he actually hits a V trigger followed by a jewel heist. Cobb kicks out of him. But it's a huge elbow followed by a kick that leads into a tour of the islands. That gets the win for Cobb here. Owens is done. Solid match. Really, really solid match. And like I said, this is the kind of match that helps establish one of the key players of Block B. Just like they did with Evil at the start of the evening, or like they did with Kota Ibushi, but on the flip side, right? Saying, okay, Kota Ibushi is good. This is the story we're telling with him. He might not be ready. Great Okan establishing him as a character, as a major player in this tournament as well. Like these are the tales that they're starting to tell here. Jeff Cobb, if you have put Jeff Cobb high in your pick'ems, wherever you decided to make them. Perhaps you made them on the MrWarrenHayes show. Perhaps you've made them on the MrWarrenHayes show Discord, which is awesome if you did. I think you're going to be well served. I think you're going to be very well served. This is Cobb's third, and he has ended both of his previous G1s with 8 points. I think he's going to score. I think he's going to be in double digits easily this year. I think he's going to be in a spoiler position on top of that. Because let's not forget, on the last night of the G1, he is scheduled to fight Kazuchika Okada. I'm going to get to Okada in a minute. And what I think is being drawn up for our boy Kazu. I think I sincerely think that Cobb here is going to do really, really good, and he is going to he's going to soar in this G1, probably even higher than probably even higher than in other circumstances. Here's a cool stat. He has never fought Hiroshi Tanahashi, of course, in the G1. Of course. He's going to have first-time matches with Tanahashi, Sanada, Tama Tonga, Yoshihashi. It's pretty dope. He's 1-2 against Hiroki Goto, and I think he's not going to stay with a losing record against Goto this year. Honestly, I don't think he's the boldest predictors out there are putting Jeff Cobb as winning Block B, but I don't know. Anyway, this was a really good match. Sanada defeated Tama Tonga in a match which completely surprised me. I did not see this coming. And as much as I was talking earlier about how Tongaloa is my Gorilla of Destiny of choice as far as singles guys go, I think he has more of an upside. I think he's more well-rounded than Tama Tonga is. Tama Tonga put on a great performance here. And this was not one of these snoozing Sanada matches where, stuff is supposed to happen, but it's just so slow for everything to sort of get cranking. And you're like, are we ever going to get going here? No, this was a good, fun-paced match. I liked it. It was actually an even match. This is what I would call it. This was a match where we had two guys who were on the same level. Very, very even level playing field here. Tama Tonga even got so fired up he took off his gear. Wrestled in his bare chest. Much to the delight of Kevin Kelly, was like, I don't know why this guy keeps his physique all hidden from us. Why would you? I'm like, Kevin. Bonk, Kevin. Bonk. Tama Tonga suckers Sanada into shaking his hand. That backfires on Sanada, of course. And then they do another spot, like they do some back and forth, and then Tama Tonga sort of he says, shake my hand, we just did a great spot. He says it audibly. We just did a great spot, shake my hand. And Sanada was like, I'm not sure. You screwed around with me the first time. So Tama Tonga goes on the turnbuckle to sort of celebrate with the crowd. He's like, yeah, wasn't that great? And then once he's done, he gets back down and he offers Sanada, why don't you go up and do the same thing? And Sanada climbs up. He goes, yeah, like that, which allows Tama Tonga to go sucker him into a move, right? Backstab him because, what are you talking about? It's as if, is this the first time Sanada is fighting Bullet Club? Because, Jesus. I thought the pace here, like I said, was really good. And Tama had these great bouts of explosiveness, then like slowing down to sort of like a heel pace, but then coming back with more fierceness. He really was alive in this match. I really liked it. Tama Tonga got Paradise locked. I appreciate the Paradise lock. I think it's good. And I appreciate Sanada wanting to take the time to make sure that people understand that the Paradise Lock is not just it's not a silly move kind of thing. It's something that that should be feared, and that once you're in it, you're really stuck. So he takes his time, right? He goes up, he sort of, waddles away, leans up against the ropes. There's one of these. Gets a breather. And he goes like this to the audience before finally doing the basement dropkick in the ass to break up the thing, right? But I feel like the longer it takes, the dumber it becomes, because at some point you're like, nah, I get it, but also this is too long now. It's getting silly here. Anyway. There was really some great counter wrestling here too. Like, Sanada does the springboard into the standing dragon sleeper, and that's reversed into a suplex that Sanada then reverses back into the dragon sleeper, which was cool. He even does he even blocks a Tongan twist into a magic killer using the top rope, which was great. There's this great near fall when Sanada hits the moonsault, but Tama Tonga lifts his knees and then rolls him up into a small package. I thought, like, at this point, I was like, okay, anything can happen in this G1 so far. So I was like, bah! But no, he kicked out. Couple of more reversals. Sanada wins with an O'Connor roll. I thought this ruled. I thought that was really, really good. Much better. Much better than I expected. And it's a good, like I said, good early showing for Tama Tonga, who ends up looking really strong. Because the thing, like I said, this was a match where both guys were on even footing. Neither one of these guys had extended periods of being in control. It was a back and forth, highly paced match. This was a cardio match. So this is one where you can't immediately rule out Tama Tonga and says, oh, he's taking the L's for the rest of the tournament. You can't at this point. Very interesting setup here. Excited to see how this keeps going. Sanada gets the early 2 here in the tournament. Taichi, our Lord, defeated Hiroki Goto. Not the first time these two boys meet each other. This spills to the floor very quickly. Goto uses the camera cable on Taichi, right? Which is usually Taichi's thing, but soon thereafter, when things go back onto the floor, Taichi gets his revenge and chokes him out with cable. You know that wasn't going to stand. Taichi starts delivering yes kicks, and so the pace that Goto was starting to establish slows down. It's a very offensively back and forth match between both guys here, because they know each other very well at this point. An axe bomber by Taichi is soon responded by a Nushi Goroshi, which was great. And there's a whole sequence where they just trade leg kicks and strikes at each other. And then they try to lariat each other down, and this nice long extended sequence, and it's attrition at this point, and it was really, really good. Because they were both trying to get the advantage on each other, because whichever man got it, it just wouldn't last long. Hell, you even had Goto wanting to win this, pulls out the Shoutin' Kai. Just because he's like, I gotta win this one. Couldn't quite put Taichi away. In fact, Taichi counters multiple GTR attempts and eventually hits the Black Mephisto for the win. So good for him. Good for Taichi to get his first 2. Goto as well. I think Taichi's going to have a pretty good. I think he's going to have a pretty good G1. One out of the tag champs. He is being pushed, right? The guy is being pushed, so why wouldn't you want to give him some shine here? I think Goto's going to be on the short end of the stick this year. He had a good G1 last year. Good, not great. I think this year, I don't know. What are they doing with Goto? What have they, like, outside of the 6-man never tag titles, which I don't give a shit about. And frankly, let's be honest with each other. You and I right now, okay? Let's talk about it. Do you really give a shit about the 6-man never tag titles in New Japan? Everyone keeps saying, oh, well, it's Yoshihashi's first title. Good for him. I still don't give a shit. Oh, but the Chaos guys here are probably the best 3 trios champs they've ever had. Fine. Still sucks. No interest. Why would I care? Like, it's prelim. Basic prelim stuff. The titles are an excuse to have trios matches. I get it. It's not interesting. Like, honestly, there's nothing that can get me there. You'd have to really shift the balance as to who is owning the trios titles for it to really become interesting. Or turn them into, like, legitimate, like, faction warfare titles, between Chaos and the Bullet Club and Suzuki-gun and the United Empire, who, by the way, just today at Rev Pro, they added Aussie Open. as Will Ospreay was wrestling, Aussie Open ran in. They tried to look. They turned there and they've joined the United Empire. It's a whole other thing. But yeah, so maybe that'll be something down the road as well. Look, we'll see what happens. I'm going off track with the 6-man tags, but this was a very strong match again. A very, 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 very good match, which I recommend highly. And then we get to the main event, Kazuchika Okada getting his 2 over perennial rival Hiroshi Tanahashi, giving us the goods straight out the gate, night 1 of B Block, and with reason. And again, this is another match that established one of a story. This is what's going to happen with your main players. This is what's going to happen moving forward now. Because, okay, first and foremost, Kazuchika Okada looked great. Great. I put over earlier how great Kenta looked. Okada, incredible. Rainmaker Okada, fantastic shape. And you know what? Here's the thing. These guys have fought 75,000 times. Right? Or something like that. I'm close, something close like that. But every time, it's meaningful. And do you know why it's meaningful, folks? I'll tell you. Because every time they make the match matter, they have all the history between Okada and Tanahashi to fall back on. It started back in 2012, right? If I'm not mistaken. All the way back there. They can all play with that. And then on top of that, you have the phenomenal job that Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton are doing to put over the history, just to make sure that you are playing along. These guys fill you in on everything. They make you feel like this match is important. It's not by grabbing a microphone and saying, big match feel tonight. That's not how you make a match feel big. You make a match feel big by investing into it, by making it matter. Not just by saying, oh, there's a big match feel tonight. Those are just words. They're words until the feeling is actually there. And this happened again. Some fantastic stuff. They even emphasized the fact that Tanahashi never really had to deal with the money clip. Was he going to be able to deal with the money clip tonight? Well, he did. He was able. At some point midway through the match, Okada tries to sink it in. Tanahashi's like, no way, pal. He resists. You think at some point he's going to pass out, but no, he gets like this burst of energy and he's like, argh. Some back and forth gut wrenches between them both, which was really cool. Ends up with Okada hitting a tombstone. He goes for the Rainmaker. Tanahashi counters with a sunset flip, but Okada sits down for the near fall. They got me on that one. And then the brilliant part of this match, the thing that just puts everything over here, is that on top of the story that they're trying to tell, you get the time limit that kicks in. Then you start hearing that 5 minutes to the end. I'm like, oh shit. Are we going to have a draw? Are we going to the draw? So on top of this, we might just go to a draw here. And here's something important that we need to underscore here. Because here's part of the stories that we're telling here. Kazuchika Okada, for the better part of a year to 18 months, his story was like, is he done? Is Kazuchika Okada done? Is he no longer the Rainmaker? Is he no longer the greatest IWGP champion of all time? Like, is it time for him to just like fade out into the sunset? Because he was having unspectacular matches in very weird conditions, seemed disinterested, didn't put in the work. Like, well, maybe he's done. That was the story, right? A lot of people thought that was legit. Just about as legit as the fact that he was wrestling with a fucking back, a hernia. Jesus Christ, people. And I remember reading the reports and I was like, there's no way he's wrestling with a hernia. Like, I know people who have had hernias and couldn't even fucking sit up. And we're talking like, not these excruciating, like, not a slip disc, just a hernia fucking hurts people. There's no way he was going around the ring doing fucking drop kicks with a back hernia. And then Tanahashi comes off of last year's G1, right? Tanahashi's, let me see here. Tanahashi's points average is 11. Okay, that's his 11-point average over the last 5 tournaments. It's the second highest average points per tournament. Behind whom? Kazuchika Okada at 12.6. So, and last year, Hiroshi Tanahashi arguably had one of the worst G1 outings he's had in a while. 8 points. Only won 4 matches last year. So he himself is coming into this G1 with maybe a little something to prove. Sure, he comes in US champion, that's fine. But maybe he's like, yeah, you know what? I've got a bit of history that I need to erase. If I'm still the ace of New Japan, this should be a cakewalk here. I should be going through this. Whereas Kazuchika Okada is like, I've got to prove something, right? And he just lost a match to Jeff Cobb not that long ago, just a couple of weeks ago, right? So the question that we all had is this our man? Is this Okada? Is this our Okada? And on top of those stories, you get the 5-minute warning. You get the time that starts playing against it. You get commentary who starts getting a little antsy about it as well. You get Tanahashi reversing a Rainmaker into an inside cradle for a really close near fall as we hit the 2-minute warning. He hits a dragon suplex with the bridge. So Okada's shoulders are on the mat. Okada kicks out at 1. At 1. I'm like, motherfucker. And I am up on my feet. Legit. You know what else? I forgot to mention it. You know what else got me up on my feet watching the G1 this weekend? When Tomohiro Ishii and Shingo were dropping each other, doing back body drivers on each other. And I was like, and they were popping right back up. I got up out of my seat twice watching this tournament this weekend. So we're within 2 minutes. We get a dragon sleeper from Hiroshi Tanahashi, pinning combination into a bridge. Kazuchika Okada kicks out at 1. They slug it out. Tanahashi hits the ropes. Okada drop kicks him, picks him up, pile driver, Rainmaker. If that is not the most classic Rainmaker finish in the world that we just got, and if that doesn't signify to you that Rainmaker Kazuchika Okada is with us, he's back, I don't know what to tell you. And that's what they wanted to establish. Is that we're not getting a half-assed Kazuchika Okada this year. You know what, folks? Here is my bold-ass prediction. Kazuchika Okada is not losing a single match in the block. I already called... My prediction was for him winning the block, but after seeing his match with Tanahashi, seeing what he did in that match, I swear, it goes beyond just winning the block. He is not losing a single match. He's going all the way. And why wouldn't you? Why would you not turn right around, head into Wrestle Kingdom, and be like, look, we're gonna use our top guys. We're just gonna use our top guys. The Gaijin are all, aside from a handful of them, they're all over in North America. They're doing other things. They're fed up. They're happy right now. They're happy. Let them do their thing. The Jay Whites, the Jay White and Juice, Dave Finlay, they're fine. So we'll turn to our guys here. We'll look inward, and we'll use the value, the wrestlers that have the true significant value, because I know this is what New Japan is banking on. They're hoping that by the time Wrestle Kingdom comes around, restrictions have been lifted and they can pack houses. Kazuchika Okada is a draw. And I know this is the kind of discussion that goes completely off the rails when you start talking about who is a draw in pro wrestling. I would dare anyone to prove the opposite in regards to Kazuchika Okada. He is a proven box office draw. He is a money guy. Anyone else, I think we can have proper discussion, some arguments. But people will pay money to see one of the greatest of all time wrestle. Why wouldn't you pin your hopes on him? Why wouldn't you drive him straight to Wrestle Kingdom? Touch wood, okay? Let's hope that no one else starts falling to the wayside. You know, that we start losing more people because of COVID, because of these goddamn restrictions, because Japan can't get their fucking act together and roll out the vaccine properly. Let's just hope that everything can stay on this path. It feels like they have contingency plans set up, that they're ready to react if something were to go wrong. But this match here, let's come back right now. This match here ruled. And it is, look, it's not, fuck. I'm trying to think of the Wrestle Kingdom where it happened. The one where they worked the legs. The Okada Tanahashi match where they worked the legs. I can't remember for the life of me which one it was. I'm sorry. But that match is like considered like the greatest one, right? Like that's the tippy top epitome of Okada Tanahashi matches. It's not their greatest match that they had last night. But it is one of the good ones. It's better than, when was the last time they had a really bad one? Or not a great one? I don't know. I don't remember. Look, it doesn't matter. It was a good match. But it's like, because Okada Tanahashi matches, I feel we have to grade them on a curve because the expectations are so high where you're like, we have to knock it, it's not as great as, but a not as great as match for Okada and Tanahashi is like umpteen times better than anything else you can get from anyone anywhere at any given moment. I want to say hello to Fretz and Mr. Fretz and Evan in the chat who are trying to figure out which Wrestle Kingdom. I honestly don't remember which one it was. I remember the match, but I don't remember which Wrestle Kingdom it was. I apologize. I'm terrible with pay-per-view names and numbers and shit like that. I really am. And so the wild part here is that we end up with this tournament kicking off with Kazuchika Okada like in his final form mode. It's like, this is the guy who carried that belt for such a long time, who was like, this is who we got. This is exactly the guy we got. And the minute he took off his robe, this is how everyone should have seen is like, oh shit, okay, he's going to destroy everything moving forward. Because this was it. My two takeaways here. Block B, this was another great show. Honestly, Block A, Block B, nights 1 and 2 were easy watches, all entertaining. Again, the Yano Kenta stuff, you can easily skip over it if comedy wrestling makes you retch, okay? Other than that, completely entertaining, wonderful evenings. And as strong as everyone, including myself, was saying that Block A was going to be, and that Block B was going to suck wind because there's only 2, maybe 3 people there that can carry the block. Block B was the better show overall. Like, if you really have a choice, watch Block B. If you really have limited amounts of time, watch the main events. Watch Shingo and Ishii on night 1. Watch Okada and Tanahashi on night 2. Everything else is gravy. It's not like things that you must avoid. The rest of the card is not things that you have to avoid. Like I said, Zack Saber Jr. and Naito I thought was fantastic. I thought Tama Tonga and Sanada had a great pace, fast-paced match on even footing guys. I thought it was great. And let's not forget. No, I already said Naito and just good stuff. It's been a good way to start off the G1, and so my first takeaway is, I said I had 2 takeaways. So my first takeaway is Block B, shockingly enough, fantastic, best of the 2 nights so far. And you've got 2 incredibly great matches in the 2 main events. Absolutely fantastic. My second takeaway, I'm excited to watch the rest of the G1. As I said at the start, I was a little apprehensive coming into it because of the state of New Japan right now, which is half and half their fault and not. But I'm excited for the rest now. Now I'm invested. They got me. They got me because they have world-class talent who can tell amazing in-ring stories and who can perform and who have the work rate to back it up. It's New Japan. It's just New Japan. So what do we have coming up next? The next 2 nights that we have set up here are going to be on Thursday, September 23rd, and Friday, September 24th. So in a little less than a week from when we're recording right now, we are going to have Block A to begin with. Toru Yano versus Great-O-Khan. Kenta versus Yujiro Takahashi, the Tokyo Pimp. Tatsuya Naito versus Tanga Loa, Kota Ibushi versus Tomohiro Ishii, and Shingo Tagaki versus Takagi, Jesus, Warren, versus Zack Saber Jr. On September 24th, Block B is going to be Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Hiroki Goto, Tama Tonga versus Chase Owens, Yoshihashi versus Jeff Cobb, Sanada versus Taichi, and Kazuchika Okada versus Evil. I'm really invested in Block B now. I'm super excited about Block B. I think there's a lot of great parts here. And with Block A too, it's just Block B was so much of a detriment. How do I see this? Why don't I shoot out a couple of predictions real fast? Let's go back to Thursday, Block A. I think Great-O-Khan is going to defeat Toru Yano. After I think Kenta is going to get one over Yujiro. Or, hang on a second. What if... No, I think Kenta gets one over Yujiro. I think Kenta gets one over Yujiro here. Naito should defeat Tanga Loa. Kota Ibushi. See, this is interesting. I would see Ishii getting a win over Ibushi here to continue this story that Ibushi isn't quite ready. But I think Ibushi might have a good final stretch. We'll see what happens. And Shingo's going to defeat Zack Saber Jr. As far as Block B goes, I would go with Tanahashi defeating Goto. Tama Tonga, I think, will get one over Chase Owens. Yoshihashi versus Jeff Cobb. Jeff Cobb is defeating Yoshihashi, that's for sure. Taichi and Sanada is going to be interesting, considering the context. They both came off of fun wins. This one's a little harder to call. I'll go with Taichi. If only because, tag team push and all. And Okada defeats Evil. I'm telling you guys, I honestly feel that they did such a good job telling the story of that match, of that main event. Kazuchika Okada is not losing a single match this year. He's steamrolling everyone. I think he's back, baby. There you have it. There we go. So that's how we are going to wrap this up. So I will be back on Friday with another recap. As I mentioned, I'll be doing these. I'll be doing this for every 2 blocks, every 2 nights. So just so that I can talk about Block A and Block B in one sitting here. So I'm excited to do that again. I'm super looking forward to it now. It feels like G1 season now. And what more do you want? Because G1 season rocks, man. It really does. I want to thank everyone who joined me today and who are watching right now or listening to this on your favorite podcast application as well. Consider a subscription if you feel like I deserve it or not. No, if I deserved it. And do give the video a like as well. Or drop us a review on your favorite podcast app. That would be awesome. In the meantime, I hope everyone has a great week. G1 is with us. We'll see you next time.